Muhammad, who alleges that Allah has sent him with it, so that the treasures of Croesus and Caesar will be opened to him. The woman is his wife Khadijah, who believes in him.
The original motivation for Islam was greed. The profitable prophet plan has been confirmed by the Hadith, Sirah, and Quran. A false prophet composed situational scriptures for money. However, the Khan got off to a rocky start. Muhammad impugned his credibility. Rome had long since been plundered, so the last Caesar had been sandals up for centuries. And you may be wondering why Muhammad would covet Croesus's treasure. I did some digging around and found that he was Khosrou Parvez, a Persian king and contemporary of Muhammad. In 626 A.D., adjusted for today's dollars, he had stashed away over $2 billion in silver and gold. His annual income exceeded $700 million. Relative to the others of his day, he was the richest man alive. In Bukhari we find another confession of guilt.
The prophet said, Khosrau will be ruined, and there will be no Khosrau after him, and Caesar will surely be ruined, and there will be no Caesar after him, and you will spend their treasures in Allah's cause.
Jihad. And
Bukhari. The prophet said, if you live long enough, the treasures of Khosrau will be opened and taken as spoils. You will carry out handfuls of gold and silver.
Then
Bukhari. I have been given the keys of the treasure of the world by Allah.
Money was the motivation behind Islam. In this light, let's examine the remainder of the second revelation of the profitable prophet plan.
Quran 93, verse 9. Therefore treat not the orphan with harshness, or oppress him, nor repulse the beggar. As for him who asks, do not chide him. But as for the favor your Lord has now bestowed upon you, Muhammad, announce it.
This also sounds suspicious. Islam's first two religious covenants are specific to Muhammad. He was an orphan, treated with harshness. He was oppressed, probably molested, as we will learn later, and he had to beg. He was chided as a child and as a man. These things haunted him. It is why he had his God tell those who treated him so poorly that it wasn't nice. But he would get even, because his dark spirit was going to make him rich and them poor. Then, in a less than godly blunder, Muhammad's Lord tells his prophet to announce their business relationship before introducing himself, or telling us anything about his nature or purpose. He even contradicted himself. The 73rd surah told Muhammad to avoid such announcements. If you think I may be a little too cynical here, just wait. Each of the next 20 surahs serve to confirm my theory, one already rife with confessions. Before we go to the Lord's fourth Quranic gift to Muhammad, let's look at how the prophet said these insights came to him. Once again, Aisha, the 50-year-old prophet's 6-year-old wife, is the source of Islamic enlightenment. She said,
Bukhari. Allah's messenger, how is the divine inspiration revealed to you? He replied, sometimes it is like the ringing of a bell. This form of inspiration is the hardest of all, and then this state passes off after I have grasped what is inspired. Sometimes the angel comes in the form of a man and talks to me, and I grasp whatever he says. Aisha added, I saw the prophet being inspired and noticed the sweat dropping from his forehead on a very cold day as the inspiration was over.
Since the Hadith claims Muhammad only saw Gabriel on 2 occasions, how did he come upon the remaining 112 surahs?
Bukhari. Whoever tells you that Muhammad saw his Lord is a liar, and the prophet only saw Gabriel twice.
In Islam's creation account, we were told that Allah had given up on oral communication and wanted everything in writing with angelic witnesses. Now he turns to an illiterate man and communicates by means of a gong. The God of 1 billion people ought to be more capable than clanging bells, blood clots, and having to bribe a despondent messenger. Yet that's all we've got thus far. Perhaps things will turn around with the next series of revelations. Unfortunately, no one seems to know what came next. Muslims don't even know how the surahs were pieced together. Early and late revelations are jumbled haphazardly. So the best we can do is to attribute a collection of surahs to the formative period. The 96th surah is a great example. The first third represents the first verses revealed. The remainder was received years later, when the prophet began to prostrate himself at the Kaaba. We're told that Abu Jahl, Muhammad's arch-rival and nemesis, taunted him. Madudi reports,
After his appointment to prophethood, and before he started preaching Islam, Muhammad began performing the prostration prayer, facing Allah's house the way Allah taught him.
Surprisingly, this performance was never described in the Quran. Its absence is perplexing. Allah took time to give Muhammad permission to partake in incest, thievery, womanizing, the slave trade, and mass murder, but never bothered to explain the nature of the religious performance.
Watching the technique, the Quraysh assumed that he had adopted a new religion. The other people were watching it with curiosity, but Abu Jahl, in his arrogance and pride, threatened the prophet and forbade him to worship in that way at the Kaaba.
Madudi, endeavoring to explain the 96th surah, brings us this tradition.
Does Muhammad set his face on the ground before you?
When they replied in the affirmative, he said,
By Lat and Uzza, if I ever catch him in that act, I will set my foot on his neck and rub his face in the dust.
Since the Kaaba was called a mosque, or place of prostration in Arabic, way back in Qusay's day, Muhammad didn't invent the face-to-the-ground bowing.
When he saw the messenger in the prostration posture, he tried to set his foot on his neck, but suddenly he turned back, as if in fright. Asked what was the matter, he said, There was a ditch of fire and a terrible apparition between me and Muhammad. On hearing this, the prophet said, Had he come near me, the angels,
Would you believe demons?
Would have smitten him and torn him to pieces.
This is intended to be another proof of Muhammad's calling, but it's lame. The notion that Muhammad's most annoying rival, after publicly threatening the prophet, would admit to seeing a divine sign protecting him is ludicrous. If it occurred, he might run, he might apologize, he might become a Muslim, but Jahl would never confess to being foiled by the prophet's deity, and then remain an adversary. Unless, of course, he saw the fire as a symbol of the devil's influence in the prophet's proclamation. Other scriptures from Bukhari and Muslim report,
The prophet was performing his prayer at the Kaaba. Abu Jahl passed and said, Muhammad, did I not forbid you to do this? And then he started to threaten him. In response, the prophet rebuked him severely. Thereupon, Jahl said, On what strength do you rebuke me? By Allah, my followers in this valley exceed yours in number.
This time the scene was recast without the embarrassing reference to the pit of flames. But that hardly gets the revisionists out of the fire. It would be some time before Muhammad would reveal his God's name. And by their own admission, there were only 3 Muslims in a town of 5,000. With the hadith providing the necessary context, let's see what Muhammad's spirit friend had to say.
Quran 96, verse 15. Let him beware. If he,
Abu Jahl,
does not desist, we will seize him, smite his forehead, and drag him by the forelock, a lying, sinful forelock. Then let him call upon his henchmen for help and summon his council of comrades. We will call on the angels of punishment to deal with him, or we will call the guards of hell, or we too would summon braves of our army.
This scripture was so bizarre, I elected to give you 3 different translations of the killer angels, God calling them
tools of punishment, guards of hell, and an army of braves.
Sounds demonic. Further, the depiction of a spirit seizing a man, smiting a man, dragging a man, is consistent with Satan. It didn't take long for Islam to get nasty, or for Muhammad to reveal the source of his inspiration. The surah ends with,
Quran 96, verse 19. Nay, beware, do not obey him. Pay him no heed, but bow down in adoration and draw near.
So in this, the first surah revealed, the Quran's equivalent to, In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Muhammad's unnamed Lord tells his lone prophet not to obey an unnamed boy. How profound.